Now, Walter Ward wrote 11 books in all. Okay? He wrote A Night to Remember, plus several other books, such as Miracle at Midway, Day of Infamy, which is about the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, A Time to Stand, which is about the Battle of the Alamo, and several other books. And all of his books are really good. I personally have read several of his books, but of all 11 of the books that he read, A Night to Remember is by far his most popular book. And in fact, it was actually turned into a movie called A Night to Remember in 1958. Now, because of the research that he did in writing this book, Walter Ward became an expert on the sinking of the Titanic. And because he was an expert on this historical event, he was often invited and asked to lecture about the sinking of the Titanic. So he was definitely an expert on this sinking. So that's a bit of the background to this historical event and a little bit about the author. So we know that we can rely on the information that we have read for today. It is factually accurate. Okay, let's move on to looking at some vocabulary words. Now, the thing about this chapter that we read for today is that it does contain a lot of words that might be unfamiliar to you. Now, I'm going to give you a lot of vocabulary words, but I'm breaking them up into two different types of groups. The first group are nautical terms. That nautical has to do with the ocean. It has to do with sailing on ships and things like terms relating to the ocean and sailing on ships. So those are nautical terms. I will give those to you first. The second terms will be just more regular, everyday vocabulary words. So let's begin by looking at some nautical terms. So please look in your PowerPoint and go to slide 4. Slide 4. The first nautical term is landlubber. A landlubber is a person who is unfamiliar with the sea or sailing. So if you're sailing on a ship for the first time and you don't really know how to maintain your balance, a sailor might say, you are a landlubber. So that's what the word landlubber means. On slide number 5, we have the word gunnel. Now, it's spelled gun whale, but it's pronounced gunnel. That W is silent. And a gunnel is the upper edge of a side of a boat or a ship. So if you look at this picture on slide number 5, you see an arrow pointing to the gunnel. It is kind of like the edge. It is the edge, the upper edge of a boat or ship. The next word is maiden voyage. I use this term, you heard this term when we talked about the historical background to the sinking of the Titanic. A maiden voyage means the very first voyage of a ship. So the Titanic sank on its maiden voyage. That means it went down on its very first voyage across the Atlantic. And we'll talk more about the significance of that later in today's lesson.